Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy on Zion, the daughters of Zion. Hmm. A lot of interesting passages there in Isaiah. When you read them, it talks a lot about Babylon, talks about Zion, talks about the daughters of Zion, Jerusalem, and their purpose on this world. We're going to be looking at a couple of verses there in Matthew 24 today. Revelation 13, Revelation 17. These all review, but we're going to look at them anyways. We're going to answer some questions, hopefully, maybe not even answers that have been asked, but I think they have been asked. They've been asked in the past, and we've talked about them in the past, and many people have conjectured on what some of this stuff means, and we're going to review some of it and go over it because I think it's good, especially in the light of the hour that we're living in, the hour of Earth's history, especially now, when so many things are going on, when the whole world is reeling with different, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of noise, and it's easy to get caught up in that noise and wonder if any of this means anything. And so it's good to separate the meaningful with the unmeaningful. Now, of course, the headlines are always, blood, guts, and gore. And those are the things that catch people's attention when we see the bombs fall, when we see people dying, when we see stuff like that. They're very exciting news. And we lend our attention there. We try to somehow put Bible prophecy, prophetic events to some of these things that have been taking place. And the truth of the matter is many of these things really don't mean much other than just, I mean, they do and they don't. I mean, all of this stuff that we're seeing, the wars and the rumors of war. Of course, it was prophesied by Jesus there in Matthew 24. A lot of the stuff that's happening in the Middle East with Russia, with Ukraine, with China, with the earthquakes in Asia, the volcanoes, all this stuff, of course, is very prophetic, most of which the mainstream media is not really reporting. And that's the stuff that we really want to watch, is the stuff that they're not showing you. Because the devil is very clever. He's going to walk into a room quiet without announcing himself, very stealthily, and he's going to be able to circumnavigate most of our senses, most of the alert signals that would normally pop up for one. He's going to go around all of that. He's going to sneak in through the back door, and he's going to do his work quietly while the headlines are pronouncing stuff that's getting our attention and keeping us fighting against one another. And I think that's the main purpose of how he operates. That's modus operandum. I think that's the way they say it. But anyways, I want to welcome Reformations on here and Watchman as well. Watchman says hi and gives us a link. Their prophecies of Dmitri Duduman, 1983. I have no idea what that is. There's lots of prophecies out there, and some of them are valid, some not so much. And Reformation said, just a quick thing before we get started on Friday night. Can we stay more on topic for the lesson? I enjoy the freestyle on Wednesday, but also do appreciate the lesson study on Friday. Yeah, we actually had a talk about that, Lisa and I, and with several of the people in my little circle. We would like to stay more on topic, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's kind of reinforces our original thinking on that. That just got way out there last Friday, and it was a little disappointing. And, my son decided to join us last minute, so I did kind of want to go through some of the, talk about some of the stuff that that he had gone through, but we could have saved that until Wednesday as well. But yes, to answer your question, that's a yes. We will stay more on topic especially with a structured lesson study like that. So Watchman says, Carrie, if you haven't seen it already, I strongly suggest you do. Okay. Email me that link though. It probably will be a lot easier for me to click on. Yes, you're welcome, Reformation. And and thanks for bringing that up. Like I said, it takes it takes a village to raise me, right? to keep me on topic. But But no, and speaking of on topic, we should pray, and then we're going to go to the Bible here, and we're going to start talking about some of these things. And if you guys have any of the, maybe some of these concerns that you guys have noticed, maybe things that have been happening that aren't really mainstream, to maybe post them as well. We can talk about that as well, because it's important to understand that everything that's happening in front of us is not really what's necessarily important. For example, the temple in Israel is one of those things that people love to talk about, and they're waiting. But really, in the prophecies, we really find nowhere in modern prophecy where it mentions anything about that. But we'll get into more of that here in a minute. But let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, Lord, to open your word and to be able to study with the saints and to be able to look at the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation, and of course, the very plain prophetic messages you gave us there in Matthew 24. Dear Jesus, we just thank you for these things that are going to give us indicators along the way, little waypoints, as you will, as we move through time, so that we can be able to identify where we're at. And that helps strengthen our faith, and it helps to solidify our faith in you as well. So we just thank you for that, Jesus, and we just ask that your Spirit will be with us today as we open your word. In your heavenly name we pray, amen. All right, folks. So here we go. Let me see. China warns America, 61 missiles, lots going on behind the scenes. Yes, heaven soon. And that's really what I want to really focus on today is behind the scenes. That's what I probably should have named the title, is behind the scenes. But there are some forbidden things we're not supposed to talk about, especially behind the scenes type stuff. By the way, my wife's not with us today, but she will be on Friday. She's been going for walks, and she's been really enjoying that with my son. And so sometimes things need to be discussed in a timely manner, especially in these end times, and that's totally understandable. Yes, I agree with that. Now, let's go to Matthew 24. One of the things, and I know I'll probably get some heat for this, but nowhere in Matthew 24, and, we've read this many times in the past, so we won't read it, the whole thing again, but we can summarize it, because the disciples asked Jesus, what would be the signs of the end, and, when would these things come to pass? And Jesus replied, and again, just very briefly here, nation will rise against nation, famines, pestilence, earthquakes. They'll deliver you up to be afflicted and kill you. You shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then many shall be offended and shall betray one another. That's in the church, and shall hate one another. All right. That I feel like is happening right now. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. We see that. But he that endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And then the final in 14 there, this is kind of like the coup de grace of all of these prophetic events all wrapped up in one. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then the end shall come. And that's kind of the root of the three angels' message, right? The three angels had a message to teach to the whole world, every kindred, nation, tongue, and people. And then wherefore, therefore ye shall see, when ye that shall therefore see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Okay, so we got to go back to Daniel to understand that. And of course, we've discussed all this stuff. And woe unto them that are with child and give them to give suck in those days. All right. It's talking about, this persecution that's going to hit us. For then shall be a great tribulation. And except those days be shortened, there shall be no flesh saved. And of course, there's false Christs, and false prophets shall arise, right? And we're seeing some of that now. Wherefore, if they say, behold, he's in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he's in the secret chambers, believe it or not. Behold, he's on CNN or Fox News, more likely on Fox, huh? I could see him coming on Fox News more than I could CNN, but maybe both. And so then it reiterates, for as lightning cometh out of the east, shines also unto the west, so also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. So every eye shall see him. Immediately after the tribulation, and those signs, the sun shall be darkened, moon will turn to blood, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And so, of course, the stars fall and a great earthquake, all those things, right? And then it goes on with these parables to sort of explain how we can know when it is near, all right? But nowhere in there do you see anything talking about Israel. And you can make the argument that nowhere in there does it talk about a great revival before the end, right? No, it doesn't. But elsewhere it does. And so if we go to Revelation 13, and there's, like I said, we've skipping a lot here, but we're just kind of summarizing things. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Now, most theologians have surmised that is indeed America, that is America rising to power, because in Revelation 17, where it talks about the woman who rides the beast. Now, Watchman has often brought up, the fact that, maybe America is the beast's power. Well, or the Antichrist. Well, I would say it would be the beast, but the beast and the Antichrist are really two different things. And the woman who sits on the beast is another thing altogether. They're all historically prophetic events that all point to the end, but they have to be put in context. I mean, there's been many beasts, right? There hasn't just been one beast, and oftentimes that's the mistake that people make. Not us, necessarily, but Christians who, and Reformation is reiterated there. The dark day, May 19th, 1780. The stars fell, November 12, 1833. So there's some dates for you guys. Thank you, Reformation. You're always very good about that. Those were historical events. Abraham Lincoln was alive during the falling of the stars, and his hi Tim, glad you're here. Glad you're joining us. And by the way, Tim's got some prayer requests, and I wanted to make this. They're going to be doing a prophecy seminar at their church, and they would like prayer because they're trying to raise some money right now for that seminar. Plus, they have a roof that needs to be fixed, and roofs can be very expensive. I know our church school just got through re-roofing the whole campus. And it was an enormous amount of money, but it needed to be done. All the roofs were just dilapidated. Every house was leaking. The gymnasium, you name it, the bus barn, the fire department, you name it. Everything just had leaks everywhere, but tremendous amount of money. It takes a lot of money to do these things. If we could pray to help Tim's church out with that would be fantastic. But there's been many beasts, and if you read Daniel, it starts talking about, the beast, the lion, the leopard, the bear, and the dragon, right, or the nondescript. And those were four beasts that would rise up out of the earth. We're later told that those were four nations. And so there was four nations, and then there would be a fifth, which would be the pagan Roman, and then the Holy Roman, and then there would be America, right? And then America, and of course, depicted in the 10 toes of Daniel and in the 10 horns, or in the 10 toes of the image in Daniel chapter 2, and also in the horns of Daniel chapter 7, and the nondescript beasts were the 10 divisions of Rome, which would then be split up because 3 of those nations would be obliterated, which were the Ostrogoth, Heruli, and the Vandals, which then would be replaced by a single small horn speaking great wonders and things against the Most High. So, and blasphemies chiefly. And so that small horn power was recognized as the Antichrist then, which rose to power, the Holy Roman Empire, which at the head of that was the Antichrist power. And their beliefs mirror that of what John had said about whosoever believes that Jesus did not come in the flesh is the Antichrist, or has the spirit of Antichrist. All right. So, and that is, we explained that a little bit, I think, last week. Really, the heart of that message is that Jesus came in holy flesh, that he was not born in sinful flesh as we are. And some might ask, well, what's the significance of that? Is that even important? Well, it is, because it's what they're really saying is that we can't become sinless like Jesus, that we in our mortal form cannot attain sinlessness, so we shouldn't even seek sinlessness. We can live a sinful life, and that's where Jesus saves us, is in our sins. It's a very, very diluted and wicked doctrine that has even infiltrated many of the Protestant churches, and they've been very effective in doing that. Now, that is the spirit of the Antichrist. And, they do believe that even the mother of Mary was immaculate, right? And so it's this holy flesh thing that, okay, well, that's God. He's born in holy flesh. He was sinless, sure, but we can't be sinless because we're not born in holy flesh. We have sinful flesh. All right. Reformation. By their testimony, every statement and every miracle must be tested. The Great Controversy 593. Speaking of the miracles that will take place here, Antichrist has performed his marvelous work in our sight. So closely will the counterfeit resemble the truth that it will be impossible to distinguish between them except by the Holy Scriptures. Amen. That's a good verse, or that's a good passage there in the Great Controversy as well. Watchman says, the war is escalating rapidly with Russia. Here's a live report happening. Now I'm trying to double task. Yeah, and here's something else. We don't really know. Well, we'll get to that in a second. I don't want to go too quickly down a rabbit. We'll get to the rabbit hole section a little bit, but I do want to make my point first. I have seen part of the video about China that you posted, Watchman, and it is very concerning, but the U.S. is supposed to be the free Christian nation, so no other nation after Rome. Okay, well, and that's true. So nobody's going to conquer America or Europe, for that matter, up until the second coming. And that's where the rock comes out that was cut without hands and smashes the image on its feet. Remember that in Daniel chapter 2 there? And so Jesus is victorious in the end. He's the one that conquers all the nations on the earth and brings in his I'm trying to form a word here. His nation that will never end or never be corrupted from that point forward. Reformation says this symbol, the beast, as most Protestants have believed, represents the papacy. Okay, and that's true. Now, there is symbology in there that does represent the papacy, and that would be the nondescript beast. Now wait a minute. If we're talking about Revelation, hang on. If we're talking about Revelation 13, the first beast, let's actually read that. That is part of the Holy Roman Empire, but it's Rome mixed in with that too. Because he said, I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, or a nation, right? Having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, that is a depiction of the papacy right there. 7 heads. Well, that is a depiction of all of Europe, really, but primarily where the seat of that beast power is, which is in the Vatican City. The city of 7 hills, the 10 horns, and upon his head 10 crowns, and upon his heads the names of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth was the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and his great authority. Okay, and one of his heads was wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. That's definitely the papacy. And the whole world wondered after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, and who is able to make war with him? Now, the beast power itself didn't have an army, but it had the armies of the nation which carried it, namely Europe during the Dark Ages, and then later America would then be that militant force that would then defend it, because the state itself doesn't have anything really that it can defend itself with. So hence the depiction of Revelation 17 where it talks about the woman who rides the beast, and that's where they all kind of come together. But these are the things that really God wanted us to know, because let's go to Revelation 17, because I think it's relevant that we know these things as well. It talks about here, it says, so he carried me away in the spirit in verse 3, Revelation 17, verse 3, into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy. And this is the wilderness. This is not the sea no more, okay? And that's interesting because the sea represented the populous areas. Now, this is, follows along there. Hey, Rodney, how you doing? Nice to have you here. This follows along with the Revelation 13, there later in the chapter, the lamb-like beast with the two horns, because that was identified to be as America. And so the wilderness would be that place. And some of, well, too many thoughts running through my head. I guess I stay focused here. But he carried me away in the spirit in the wilderness. Verse 4, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold. Okay, on and on. And so it pretty much describes the colors of the Roman Catholic Church, right? The Roman Catholic system, scarlet and red and purple and all those, decked with gold and precious stones, golden cup in her hand, which incidentally, if you look at their coin, that's a perfect example of that. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, persecuting power. And the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast which carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and the 10 horns. Okay. So, but nowhere do you find anything where it talks about Israel in all of this, do you? Now this is interesting because this is, you can read Revelation from beginning to end. Other than the 7 churches, it really doesn't mention Israel here. And that's interesting because everybody's making it about Israel nowadays, and makes you wonder why. So if the headlines say this, then always look behind what the headlines are saying. Always look beyond that. Okay, but this is the final view if the woman is in her mature state. You guys were talking about something here, maybe. Oh, that's Rodney's comment. Yeah, but this is the final view if the woman is in her mature state. Okay, so you're saying the fulfillment really hasn't completely reached its fullness yet, is what you're saying. And that may be true. Now, here's something interesting. I was looking at Joel 3:14. Let's turn to that really quick because this gives us another little indicator of the state of God's people right at the end. Okay, Job 3:14 or Joel 3:14. Okay. Daniel 11:45 was about Israel. Okay, we'll get to that in just a second. All right, because Daniel's very much an end-time prophetic book, so that's worthwhile to take a look at, right? Okay, it says here in 3:14 of Joel, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision, okay? And the sun and the moon shall be darkened, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. The Lord also shall roar out of Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the heavens and the earth shall shake, but the Lord will be the hope of his people and the strength of the children of Israel. Okay, so this is, but multitudes and multitudes in the valley of decision before that great and terrible day of the Lord. That's right at the end, right? That's a prophetic event. And do we see that now? Everybody's kind of sitting on the fence. It is identified as a religious power that is drinking the blood of the followers of saints. Watchman says, Carrie, it's because the prophecies in the Old Testament are still valid and in place. Well, some of them, yes, I would agree with that, but not all of them. And they've taken, now remember, Watchman, well, let's read this comment here first. Revelation actually gathers a lot of information from the Old Testament manuscripts. There are similarities. That's 100% agreed. We're not disagreeing about that. It might not be mentioned in Revelation specifically, but Daniel was given detailed info about the nations throughout the world from his day down to the end. All right, well, let's look up 1145. All right, Daniel 11:45. And let's take a look at that. Daniel 11:45. All right, so, but tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore, I'm just backing up to 44 here to get a little context. All right. Shall trouble him. Therefore, he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly make away many. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. Let me back up a little bit. I've read this like 400 times, but not lately. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. 11's one of those ones that strong countries in the land of Egypt shall not escape, but he shall have power over the treasures of gold. But tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth, great fury to destroy knowledge and make away many. Let me think on this. I've said it many times. I'm not a quick thinker. Let me think on this just for a few minutes. We'll come right back to it. If I don't, remind me, and we'll come right back to it. Because there was a definition for this once upon a time. I just can't recall it right at the moment. And he shall plant his tabernacles. It's like right on the tip of my brain. Okay, this is the king of the north and the king of the south. Okay, we do talk about this sometimes. Thus shall he do with the most strongholds with a strange God. Who's he? Okay, who's he, first of all? That's a good question. Whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory. And he shall cause him to rule over me, and shall divide the land for gain. Who is this? And at that time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter the countries, and shall overflow and pass over. He shall enter into the glorious land, and shall many countries be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab, and the chief children of Ammon. Now, remember, for the chief part, Edom and Moab have pretty much been destroyed. Okay, this is an end-time prophecy, right? But Edom and Moab are really no more. It's a lot like when it talks about Babylon. Hi, Liza. Nice to have you here with us. Hi, everyone, she says. Evan Sue says, Rowdy, the sudden enforcement will be yet in the part of the verse. Seas, the Mediterranean, the Dead Seas. Okay, so anyways, he shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. It's kind of like when the Bible talks about Babylon in Revelation. Is it talking about Babylon being resurrected? Because there in the prophecies are very clear. It said it would never be reborn or never be rebuilt, excuse me. And yet it's talking about how it's rising to prominence once again, right there in Revelation 17, Revelation in general, right? I mean, it mentions it multiple times. And it also says how Babylon would come under remembrance, right? And Edom and Moab, weren't they the sons of like, especially Edom, weren't they the sons of they were the enemies of Israel, right? But they were the sons of Esau, weren't they? Am I getting that right? Moab and Edom. One of you guys, Reformation Heaven Soon, should know that. And those nations basically don't exist. In fact, Moab, okay, maybe we got an answer here. He from 1141 was Napoleon, and he did not attack the historic lands which once were Edom, and he did not attack the historic lands which were once Edom and Moab. Yes, and he does change throughout Daniel 11. Edom was the land of Esau. Moab was the sons of Lot. Thank you. Okay. Both enemies of God, right? So could this be, we're not supposed to spiritualize everything, but some things are very much spiritualized, right? And when we talk about, let's say, Edom and Moab, to me, this is spiritualization of those two nations. They're basically the enemies of God. And who are the enemies of God now? Do we have any specific nation that's enemies with God's people right now? Not really, huh? I mean, we could say Islam. We could say, we could throw names out there, but not in the classic context, because we have missionaries working in those Islamic countries right now, and many of those people are coming to Christ by the hundreds and by the thousands. They're not our enemies. But there is an enemy. If anything, there is an enemy, and that one's spelled out in Revelation 17. And when you dovetail the prophecies together, I mean, because they have to fit, right? The enemy it talks about over and over and over again is this end-time beast power which joins with the church to persecute God's people. So all of the brainchild of this whole thing really is the church that rides on the military might of the nation, according to Revelation 17 there. And so now that would be the enemy of God's people, right? We have a church, actually. And that's why John the Revelator marveled when he saw these prophecies, because he couldn't believe that the church, I mean, I'm surmising here. This is just taking a little bit of free will here to do this, but that's because, he never expected the church to be persecuting the saints. But here we have it, and that's really what's taking place. Reformation says the founders of the SDA Church agreed that chapter 11 was literal. They even proved their point with the fulfillment of verse 44 and the Crimean War in 1853. Well, please help me out with some of the eschatology of that, please. I'm trying to because I've never really, like I said, I've heard a sermon after sermon on this whole thing, the king of the north, king of the south. They're basically sitting at the same table, but they agree with each other. But one of them in Spirit of Prophecy basically was said that was Catholicism. I think it was the king of the north, wasn't it? It was definitely Catholicism. Watchman says, Carrie, the nations are breaking down. There are mass riots in Europe and mass Islamic immigrations. Okay, now I want you to look behind the scenes, though, and I'm glad you brought that up. Watchman also adds that America is falling from mass immigration and overtaxation. All right, and let me catch you on that one. Our leaders are completely spiritually asleep. Okay, our leaders, he meant, are completely spiritually asleep. I agree with that. Reformation, wrong. E.G. White has always said that. Daniel 11:40-45 is unfulfilled prophecy. Okay, so I'll let you guys figure that out between you guys too. And but here's the thing. Yes, we have the UK, we have Europe, we have Australia, New Zealand. We have all these countries that are fighting back against this oppressive immigration laws. Right now, America apparently too. We say they're oppressive. At least that's the theme that they've painted for us, right? But this is all headline news. If not on CNN and Fox, it's definitely on social media, and every single headline is talking about this call to Christianity in these nations and how they must evict all of the immigrants. But now in America, especially, they are violating a lot of people's rights in order to do that. Now, that's okay, because as long as you're on the right-hand side of things, then you don't care about the left, do you? And the left was violating people's, freedom of speech and what they were practicing, and it was the people that it was the right-wing party that was being violated, and they were getting canceled from social media whenever they would try to say something. But now it's their turn, right? And we're in the position of power now. The pendulum swung in the other direction, and how far is this going to go? Because if we understand how the devil works, he's gonna get everybody rallied, right? And that's what he's done under the guise of Christianity. Great false revivals taking place right now. And they're going to kick out the Islamics, but the Islamics are not the enemy, right? They're just useful. I don't want to use this terminology, but for lack of a better word, they're useful idiots. I mean, it's kind of like Antifa, right? Antifa's out there exciting all of these problems in the cities, but they represent the left-wing group. They're certainly funded by the left-wing powers, right? Or the ones who claim to be part of the left-wing powers. And this is where the king of the north, king of the south kind of come into play, in my mind. This is my interpretation of it, because this is all being planned from somewhere. Somewhere up higher, all of this debauchery is being planned. And so the ultimate goal is to get the pendulum to swing way far left, which they've already done, and then there's an outcry, and it's going to swing way too far right, and then that's where the religious laws are going to come in. They're going to press the laws. They're going to press Congress to make laws passing the Sunday law. And, the whole world has already done that to some degree or another, but it's America that we're waiting for. America is really kind of the last holdout for this final thing to happen. And once America caves, that's it. We're done. So let me see here. Watchman, I want to get to, there's also the understanding of the 3.5 years and 42 months. Okay, well, that's easy. The 70 weeks of Daniel, that references to Cyrus, as Trump has been equated to. That was the 490 weeks, or the 490. When Peter asked Jesus, how many times must we forgive a man? What was Jesus' response? 70 times 7, right? Which added up incidentally to 490 years, 490, which the 70 years, that was a time that they were to make a completion and to return to God, basically, right? The words are a little fuzzy in my head, but I know the spirit of what's being said here. And that was their call for Israel to make an atonement before the Messiah came, and they missed that. And it was up 70 AD was up at the stoning of Stephen, which then the message then went to the rabbis. And, in that 3.5 years in the middle, that was the ministry of Jesus. And so there's some pretty good stuff on that. A few years ago, I think we did a Sabbath school talking about that whole prophecy of Daniel. There's a split doctor in the cross YouTube. Some people think it's the Pope. Some people think it's the Prince Charles, but I'll tell you, Trump is the closest. Split doctrine on the cross. Reformation says, and DAR clearly states that verses 40, 44 have already been fulfilled. Okay, Jewish rabbis have already selected Donald Trump. He's working as a man of peace, as blasphemous mouth, and as fitting as the AC. Daniel used a Persian word here. He had the word tent or tabernacle and the word palace, but didn't use those terms. Could it be that Daniel was not describing the look of the building, but the use? Okay, that's actually an interesting observation. So a paden were embassies, but that term didn't exist back then. You guys are a little bit over my head here. I'm trying to catch up to you. Have to speak in like dummy terms for me. Too many parallels, guys. We're heading directly into a world conflict. Well, it would seem so, but really there's going to be an apparent world conflict, and there's going to be this sudden, unity or apparent unity, which how unified can the devil be? Not very, right? It's going to be an apparent unity with Sunday law, and then we'll follow the disasters upon the earth. But it won't be at the hands of man, but by the hands of God. Now, I'm not saying that we're not going to create a lot of chaos for ourselves. Daniel 11:40-43 is clearly talking about Napoleon. Verses 44 was Turkey fighting a threefold war. I really don't know. To be honest, I guess that's something maybe we should talk about next Wednesday, because little ill prepared here. I know enough to get myself in trouble. The old terminology. I spent 2 days with an electrician, and he told me how to do a few things, so I thought I would wire my house, and then it burnt down, right? I mean, that's not really, but that's the danger. Heaven soon says the whole world will wander after the beast. Yeah, and if you look at that, now when you're looking at the beast power, and if you're looking at, oops a daisy, I just erased myself. If you're looking at the beast power, it has to fit into historical beast, because Revelation 13 clearly points out those four beasts, the lion, the leopard, and the bear, and the dragon of Daniel chapter 7. So there is a tie between this beast, because it makes an image like unto the first beast, right? And that image, we as Seventh-day Adventists believe that it's the Sunday law. And they themselves state that as well in the book Faith of Our Fathers. I brought that out before. How they claim that the Sunday law is their mark of authority, of ecclesiastical power, and their proof of that is that the whole world keeps Sunday. It's a very simple thing. It's really not that hard to kind of ingest. The Watchman says, heaven soon. I think the whole world is wondering right now, because we don't know where we're going. Where we're going. They're getting ready to destroy everything. Heaven soon agrees. Digital currency, the biggest Christian's concern, could wipe away their salvation. Well, I mean, it's not the form of currency that's going to wipe our salvation away, but the digital currency is the one that they have to implement, right, for the controlling of the buying and selling. And I think that's what we're waiting for. I don't think the using of the digital currencies, because whether we realize it or not, we're all basically using digital currency right now. I got a whole wallet full of cards. Half of them are useless. I guess my wallet's upstairs. Anyways, oh no, it's right here. I got a whole wallet. How many of you guys have these? God has to come back or the planet would destroy itself. He comes in mercy. The digital currency will be completely controlled and clearly connected with the mark. Well, right there. There's one form, right? There's my card. Don't want you guys to see my number. Not that you guys would do anything, but if somebody evil would come along, there's another card. There's another card. Anyways, so these are all cards, right? And I hardly ever deal with cash, and you guys probably pretty similar. The digital currency will be completely controlled and clearly connected with the mark. We all sort of agree on that, right? I mean, that's how we think they're going to control it, 100%. As long as there's still cash out there. They're already using the digital currencies in Vietnam, pushing the real ID. Well, here in Montana too, Watchmen, we are told we wouldn't be able to buy or sell, so them implementing this is only a fulfillment of prophecy, Reformation says. You won't be able to buy or sell without the mark. Then you will use your device, some method to do the transaction, like we do now, right? Liza said, I did realize what the UK kings and queens stood for until the coronation of King Charles. I realized that he is a representative of the church. Okay. All right. Well, then that's interesting. But would he be... But the head of the church is definitely the Pope. I mean, he still dresses in black when he goes before the papacy, right? Am I wrong about that, or is there something else? England is losing itself with Muslim immigration. I hear people chat about it all the time. Yeah, well, Ireland too. I mean, there's, Australia, New Zealand. I mean, they're all complaining about the same thing, even America. Well, there's at least the fear of it, right? They're saying our cities are being overrun. We're losing our culture if we really had a culture to begin with. I mean, I know what they mean by culture. I'm not going to stand here and pretend like I'm ignorant. But honestly, the culture in America is very young, and it's constantly changing. The culture in America, turn of the century was very different than the culture today. And they're saying that these people are coming in to change the culture, and there's some irony in all of that, really, when you think about it. I mean, culture changes, just the way the language is spoke. You listen to early English, and it's very different. You can barely understand it compared to how people speak today. And I'll bet you if they, of times past, heard the way we speak today, they would have the same sentiments. The Archbishop is the head of the church, but the king is their boss. Is the Archbishop and the Pope the same? Because, you guys are confusing me a little bit here. Now, I know, the king and the Pope often fought, didn't they, about who had the power, and they would display that sometimes by trying to command armies against one another, if I'm not mistaken, and they would try to vie for loyalty. I mean, there was times in the church where there was some confusion, right? I mean, the kings were angry with the papacy because they wanted the power, and then the papacy was angry with the kings, and there was a king once upon a time, I forget which one, but he didn't he pilgrim barefoot to the Vatican and stood in front of the palace on his knees or something asked for forgiveness of the Pope? When was that? That was some historical event I remember reading once upon a time. Gee, I need to really get my history better. Did you see that the Church of England has selected a woman? A woman for what? Oh, here's something interesting. I don't know how relevant it is, but somebody had brought up this idea that maybe all the popes were actually women dressed up like men. Did you guys hear that one? I don't know. Something about how the ancient priesthood was that same way. Or it was like some kind of effeminate man, or a woman dressed like a man. Some kind of mockery. Anyways, devil's full of those mockeries. Not tabernacle of his palaces in the original version of Daniel 11:45. Daniel actually wrote Apadana, which was used back then as we use the embassy today. Again, man, heaven soon, you're way over my head with these things. I just feel kind of silly when you guys start talking about that. I'm just not very, very up on this stuff. Henry VIII split from the papacy, and Henry created the Church of England. The Church of England then created the position of the Archbishop. Okay. Henry VIII. Okay, and then Liza says, 2 Thessalonians 2, 3, and 4 reminds us that the day shall not come until the man of sin be revealed. We will see. God will give us discernment when the time comes. Good point. Actually, let's go to that because that is a That is a good one. That's talking about the one who sits in the throne, right? I'm not mistaken. 2 Thessalonians 2, 2 and 3. That ye may not soon be shaken in mind or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter as from us, as that day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first. I did mention that a few weeks ago, the falling away. You know, we see this worldwide revival. Oh, have we seen the falling away first? Maybe we have, maybe we haven't, right? And that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he is God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things. That's pretty clear, actually, to me. I mean, Elijah Trump is all about getting that gossip for his Riviera and putting up the temple for money to come to the area. I'll bet you a 6-pack of root beer, Watchman. We shouldn't bet, huh? I'll bet you 2 bits that the temple never gets built. In fact, it might even get bombed and obliterated. And the reason I say that is because it's just not about that. It's just not about that. It's not about the temple. That's a direct defiance to God. Now, because I said it, that doesn't mean it's going to happen like that, but who cares, right? I'm not a prophet. I'm not a son of a prophet. But the point is this, it's in a direct defiance. That's why they're doing it. They're basically saying Jesus isn't Jesus. Jesus is not the Son of God. He's not the true Messiah. We're waiting for another. Who would support that kind of thinking? That is ridiculous. That's devilish. Do the devil's plans come to fruition? I mean, it's like the devil creating his own Messiah. It's like the devil coming up and just literally defying Jesus, the Son of God, and then what? He's going to come down and bless it. The devil himself is going to go over there and sacrifice a red heifer. I mean, that's almost what it seems like what's going to take place. I'm just so against that whole thing. It is abhorrent to me, and I'm sure it's abhorrent to God because they're rejecting the blood of the Messiah. They're rejecting the sacrifice. They're rejecting everything about what Jesus is and who he is and what he stands for. They're rejecting Christianity. And they're rejecting you and me. They will spit on you as you walk by them there in Israel. They don't like Christians. They're completely stymied why a Christian would follow and support Israel so tightly when Israel basically hates everything that they teach. Well, here you're going to get me in trouble again if we're going to go to Zephaniah. All right, Watchman, let's go to Zephaniah 1 through 18. I'll make myself vulnerable. I don't care. I can't just rant and rave on here, right, without sticking my neck out somewhat. Direct defiance all over the Bible and history. Well, yeah, but it's more than just that. When they were directly defying God, God put them under captivity. It wasn't like he blessed their defiance, you know. It wasn't like they blessed their defiance at all. All right, what was that? Zephaniah 1:18. You guys are up on these verses. See, I read the Bible way different than a lot of the modern Christians nowadays, and so it's not always possible for me to be up on their latest. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath, but the whole land shall be delivered by the fire of his jealousy, for he shall make even a speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land. I mean, that's a good verse, actually. Let's read some context. I will bring distress upon men that they should walk like blind men, because they have sinned against the Lord, and their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as dung. Okay. Day of the wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and a desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness. I'm just reading this backwards for some reason. The great day of the Lord is near. It is near and hasteth greatly, even the voice of the day of the Lord. The mighty man shall cry there bitterly. Yeah, not much to disagree with there. Carrie, what if we were to just go to Zephaniah 1:8? What if that just happens? It looks that way. What if that just happens? It looks that way. Carrie, that's exactly what they do. Direct defiance is all over. Okay, we already read that. It says in Revelation, they will raise their fists and curse God even after all their plagues. Yeah, that's right. Is that the righteous speaking? Because the wicked were the ones that received the plagues. Am I mistaken on that? I don't think I am. And they repented not, it says, of their sins. So these are the wicked who literally have received the plagues because they have done unrighteousness before the Lord. And they even curse God after they've received the plagues. I've seen what the Jews believe in the Talmud. It's insane. Some of their type of denial syndrome of the truth. It is. It's ludicrousy. It's insanity, actually. And agreed, Watchman. The people, even if given a second chance, would be determined to fight God's will. We should be following in the footsteps of the Lamb, our Redeemer. Follow the Lamb wherever he goes. Revelation 14:4, just like Elisha and Elijah and the antediluvian followed Enoch, because, and there's going to be a second part to that. Yeah, I mean, Jesus, whosoever believes in me shall not perish but have eternal life. I mean, when you're trying to make another Messiah, that's rejecting God in the worst possible way. By offering up another red heifer, they're not honoring God in the slightest. This is devilish work. The gold and the silver right now is very relevant, over 4,000 an ounce. I'm not sure you're going with that. But it won't be able to, buy them out of their troubles, right? Because when God's judgments fall on this earth, gold or silver, neither shall deliver them from it. It'll be like the fall of America. America won't fall until the last day. They say the sixth seal is the fall of America. Yeah. And again, that's they, right? No, I don't think that's what the Bible's saying. It's not insanity, but deeply instilled tradition. We see this today with Sunday worship, the state of the dead, etc. It's hard to change a tradition as part of a culture. Yeah, but it is insanity. It's insanity anytime, if tradition tells us to march off a cliff into utter darkness. I mean, that's literally what's happening here. They're being told as little children to reject God and his offering of redemption and eternal life, and to look for another. And if you've rejected Jesus, there is no second sacrifice. There is no, that's what the Bible tells us, right? There is no more sacrifice to those who have, how does it put that? Crucified Christ afresh, or something like that. There's a lot in that verse, actually, kind of describing the papacy and how they hang him. They will say they are righteous. They will do what it says in John 16:2. Let's look up that. Liza says, let's do a meetup. Yeah, let's do a meetup. What would you suggest, Liza? Maybe you could be in charge of that. I'll show up. I would love to meet you all in person. Oh, that'd be fun, wouldn't it? Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Where would we do that, though? We're all separated by great, vast. State of the Dead is harder for our. I would love to, though. I really would. That would be cool if we could all meet up. I really think that would be awesome. We got a pretty cool little group here going. Let me see here. And then I could let you guys do the talking for a change. That'd be fun. I believe it or not, I really don't like to talk that much. We could worship and do a social. Absolutely. Yeah, we could hang out and do all kinds of fun stuff. I wish I had like I've got 10 acres, but I got like almost no place to stay here. My family comes and stays, and they have to like sleep in my basement and stuff. It's pretty sad. I'm trying to build on more so I can have some guest space. What I need is like a big building or something. It's just, when you my money just never seems to go very far. And anyways, Carrie, the gold will rapidly lose its value and people will throw it in the streets. Who are the government will make you and collect it? Yeah, that sounds about right. I can agree with that. America's the last bastion of freedom. When this country is gone, it will be a futuristic beast system for sure. Well, America will invest 100% into that, into the end time events. I mean, it's America that basically pushes it all through. It's my understanding. Trump is already stomping all over the Constitution, martial law in the cities. It was something I worried about 5 years ago. Hey, man, you remember that great controversy that you got from your grandma, Watchman? I still remember where you got that. Keep reading that thing, man. It talks about all that stuff. It talks about how the Constitution, and she wrote this over 100 years ago. I mean, she talks about how the Constitution would be completely, like every part of it would be abrogated. Reformation says sixth seal, Revelation 6:12 occurred in 1755 with the Lisbon quake. It also included the aforementioned dark day in 1780 and the stars falling in 1833. I'm going to go back to what Liza says. I mean, what would it cost? What would it cost to? I mean, I'm sure we could probably find some accommodation somewhere. We could figure out something, right? I mean, we could get a campground. We could figure out something. But yeah, I mean, plane tickets. I mean, what would they cost? I mean, where would be a good meeting place for all of us? Maybe we should talk about that more. Let me see here. We are currently in the middle of the sixth seal, the sealing time. Reformation, I can't come with you. Think how I could agree with you. I can't even come to think how I could agree with you. Well, you know what, man? That may be how we think now, but as we continue to study our Bibles, we're going to come to a lot of conclusions we never thought we were going to arrive at. And that's kind of the fun part about Bible study, you know, and that's where it leads us. It leads us into wonderful and glorious places, and closer and closer and tighter unions with one another, but also test our mettle too, you know, along the way. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of us, hopefully not us, but you know, a lot of our people will fall away, and that's going to be a sad time. I was going to look up a verse. What was it? What did you give me back here? You gave me a verse. I was going to look it up. I get so side-swoggled. Let me see here. Oh, John 16:2. All right. John 16:2. Let's go there. The Gospel of John 16, verse 2. And it says, they shall put you out of the synagogues, yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth God's service. Okay, yeah, they'll kick us right out of the churches. Now, but that time hasn't come yet because they're literally going to be trying to kill us during that point in time. But yeah, I mean, point well taken. There will be that time, and they will basically not endure sound doctrine, right? It basically says the same message like 10 different ways when you read different verses in the Bible, you know, and how they love the darkness more than the light, and how they were destroyed for lack of knowledge because they rejected knowledge, you know, and it goes on, right? And people fall into darkness because they do reject darkness, and then God takes it away from them. And then they cry out for enlightenment, you know, because they don't have it anymore. It talks about as Isaiah how he took away their rest, their Sabbaths, right? They fell into captivity under Babylon. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now we want to keep the Sabbath. But they can't because Babylon is not about that. Fulfillment of this prophecy there occurred in the year 1755, the most terrible earthquake that has ever been recorded. Maranatha. The other night, I kept seeing Revelation 6:3 flashing before me. I couldn't sleep, so I finally got up and reviewed the text, which is the closing of the sixth seal. Let's go to Revelation 6:3. Let's read that. Yeah, it's another one of those verses I must have read 100 times. You ever notice you don't really memorize a verse until it becomes important? Then all of a sudden it's like, wow, that verse is important. Okay, 6:3, here we go. And it says, and when he had opened the second seal, oh, that's just, wait, 6:3? Did I read that wrong? Revelation 6:3, yeah. Oh, it's in here. And when he had opened, And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse, and it was red, and power was given to him there on a black horse. The sixth, okay, 12, verse 12 here, actually. And I beheld, and he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. Now, we think that's already been fulfilled, right? Reformation gave us the dates there. And the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll. This is what happens directly after. 6:13. Yeah, that makes more sense. And the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casts her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. Of course, this is the second coming, right? The kings of the earth and the great men, the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, "Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand?" So that is the final event that takes place right before the second coming. Now, the stars falling from heaven and the great dark day and the sun, now those were already historically fulfilled. I think we're told that this is going to happen again. Am I wrong about that? Joel 2:31 is part of the sixth seal. Oh, really? Okay, well, we read what? We read Joel 3:14. Let's go to 2:31. Okay, so Joel 2:31. This is interesting. Where are we going to go with this? Joel 2:31. Let's check this out. Then the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord. Oh, yes. 100%. I mean, you can't mistake that, can you? And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. All right. And I will pour out upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days while I pour out my spirit. And it shall come to pass, I'm just reading backwards again, I don't know why I do this, to pass afterwards that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. And ye shall know that I am the midst of Israel, that I am the Lord your God, and none else, and my people shall never be ashamed. Okay? So it's talking about prophecy. It's talking about how they'll be prophesying. Now it says God doesn't do anything unless he reveals it first unto his prophets, right? It's interesting when God formed the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I believe he did, and I say that unashamedly anymore, that he gave us a prophet, and that was the spirit of prophecy. Now, somebody had asked me, he says, well, how do you know that the Adventist Church is the true church? And I'll tell you right now, it's because those who keep the testimony of Jesus or keep the commandments Sorry, guys. And have the testimony of Jesus. Uh-oh. Did I lose you guys? No, you guys are still there. Yeah, my internet just crashed on my phone. Oh, my Wi-Fi's off, that's why. Come on, baby. Okay, here we go. Yeah, Revelation 12:17. Right? Revelation 12:17. Those who keep the commandments have the testimony of Jesus. And it later says that the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. Now, there's only one set of books that are called the spirit of prophecy, guys. And if you read them, you would agree with me that, we do have the spirit of prophecy. The spirit of prophecy is given to the faithful church. And there's only one church in the whole wide world that has it. It's an unpopular thing to say, man. You're not even supposed to say it nowadays, even amongst Adventists. We're not supposed to say these things, even in our own churches, because we've been accustomed to not say these things. Let's get to these. Lots of Jeremiah 51:33 probably has a part to do with it, the sixth seal. Joel 2:31 is part of the sixth seal. The sun shall be turned into darkness, the moon into blood for that great and terrible day. We just read that, and it speaks of a similar pattern in Matthew 24. It does, yes. I praise God for the message, reminding us that the coming is at the door. The sixth seal is closing. You know, we're so close, aren't we? I know Jeremiah 15:51 lines up with the future events because it lines up with Revelation 18, same as with Isaiah 13 and 47. Okay. The Euphrates River drying up also was a sign of the four horsemen. Yeah, well, it was a sign of the. So when Babylon fell, I mean, that's what Cyrus did, right? He dried up the rivers so he could go up underneath the gates, and Babylon fell. So again, you know, in Revelation, where the rivers Euphrates is drying up, it could be literal, right? Because I mean, we look at river Euphrates, and it's literally drying up, but it made the way for the kings of the east, right, to cause Babylon to fall. Babylon, I would say, if anybody's the enemy, is Babylon. Babylon was the enemy back then; it's the enemy today. But Babylon today is not the Babylon of old, although it has all the same attributes, right? The same pagan beliefs, the same, sun worship, you name it. You know, the sacrificing, all of this stuff that goes on, and the people follow blindly. It's always the elites that do the sacrifices. It's never the people, right? People are being sacrificed. Matthew 24, Jesus was answering three questions. When signs are coming, signs of the end. Jesus was answering three questions. One is when. Two, signs of the coming. Three, signs of the end. Jesus answered all three, but not in order or exact detail. And that's interesting, too, because Revelation does the same thing. It'll answer those questions. It keeps repeating itself. You know, the 1 through 7. See the 7 churches. We see, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Those aren't 7, but, and then the 6 seals, the 7 seals, the 7 plagues, the 7 trumpets. All of those things line up and basically talk about the same events, just giving us more detail each time. They're not individual events. That's where a lot of people go wrong. This week I learned to be patient when sharing the Word of God. When James and John asked for fire to fall on the town that did not want Jesus, our Savior, reminding them of the Spirit that's in them. When James and John asked for fire to fall on a town that did not want Jesus, our Savior, yeah, that's right. Well, and that's it. I find myself calling fire down on cities too. Neighbors, But yeah, and then we have to be reminded that's not the Spirit of Jesus. John then became the disciple of love from one of the sons of thunder, through the transformation process. Heaven soon, I can't agree with that. Doesn't line up. Watchman says. Okay. So, yeah, so we're, when we're talking about the second coming of Jesus, what are the signs? I don't think it has anything to do with a lot of stuff that the news is putting on. I think it has a lot to do with, if we just read the plain words of Revelation there in Matthew 24 and Daniel, those all three should line up, right? And yes, it sounds like Daniel might be talking about some things that are found in Israel, but we have to line those prophecies up with Matthew 24 and Revelation as well. And then everything has to line up. You can't have one just being off by itself, all maverick. And in Revelation, actually, Matthew 24 is probably the plainest reading of the prophetic events of anything, ever. I mean, there's no symbolizing anything in that whatsoever. It's just very plain language that Jesus uses. And there's no talk about Israel. There's no talk about Russia or Ukraine or, those types of things. It's just a very simple message that gives us waypoints along the way. Reformation agrees with Liza. We see the maturity of John. He was probably under the age of 20 when he asked for fire to fall, and as he matured, he came to understand Jesus better. He was humble and more forgiving. Well, that was John, the young Christian, right? Read Revelation 18 together with Jeremiah 51. They complement each other perfectly and give a picture of 2020 and 2023. I'll do that. I will. I'll read Jeremiah 51 and Revelation 18. That's good to parallelize Scripture like that because we know that these guys were students of Scripture as well as they wrote prophecies that was revealed unto them. That was the same prophecy was given to the ancient prophets as well, just under, different words, obviously, that were used to describe these visions, and different words, different languages even, probably, right? Because many of the Old Testament's prophets would probably have written these things in Hebrew, whereas the modern prophets would have written them in Greek, and then we have even a more modern prophet that writes them in English. And so yeah, actually there was a symbolism. Otherwise, there wouldn't be arguments about 24:15. Yeah, I think so. That's the thing. We got to know what is symbolized and what is. Now, there was a principle that Ivor Myers gave us, and I've always kind of just used that as a baseline. What is literal in the Old Testament is spiritual in the New Testament, and then is literal again in the heaven. Does that make sense? Like, for example, Israel was a literal state, but then it had a spiritual, a significance and typology that then transferred into the New Testament, as Israel is now still very much a people, but it's not the literal state of Israel anymore. But it's the people who have been given a name, who Jesus has given a name to. But in heaven, again, we're going to have the New Jerusalem descend. It'll be a literal state once again. So, Carrie, laugh out loud. Inside joke. I see you stopped reading, learned from the past. Yeah, well, yes. We've got to learn from the past, that's for sure. So that's funny. But and so we have this literalization, or this literal, spiritual, and then literal. And then so like there's so many examples of that. Babylon would be one of them. The lamb. Okay, so in the typology, there was a literal lamb being slain, but then the lamb became Jesus. Well, that's kind of backwards almost, isn't it? Because that was the symbolism, and then became the literal, which is the literal in heaven. All right, so it doesn't work for everything, but anyways, that's my little brain working. Reading Revelation 18, 8 through 24 appears to be additional details about the events in Revelation 1 through 6. Yeah, okay. Well, shucks. Let's just go to Revelation 18. Why don't we? Okay, here I go reading again, right? Okay. Get ourselves in trouble once more. That's okay. I'll take the hit, and whatever I got coming, right? 1 through 6. And after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drank of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Fornication, incidentally, is a symbol for going after other gods, okay? And the kings of the earth, i.e. Trump, have committed the fornication with her. She is the priestess, right? And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich to the abundance of her delicacies. Again, there's, is a study for an entire program. Yes, I know, and maybe we will next Wednesday just do that whole thing. But, I mean, listen, Reformation, you brought it up like 3 times, so I got to read it, a little bit of it. maybe this will be a little tidbit, and then we'll end our live of what we should be talking about next week. So how about that? And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sin, and you receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities." Okay, reward her even as she had rewarded you. This is a system that has been on the earth for a long, long time. Satan, the song, Sympathy for the Devil. Have you guys ever look at the lyrics to that? I'm not suggesting you listen to it, because it is a catchy little tune, and you can get that catchy little tune stuck in your head. That's the last thing you want. But I think you guys have all probably heard it, if not listened to it yourselves once upon a time. But it's a song by the Rolling Stones, and the words are very interesting. Just look up the lyrics. Don't listen to the music. Look up the lyrics and just read them. And it tells a story. And that story is an interesting perspective. That's the devil's perspective of things. And talks about how he was around during the days of Jesus Christ. Remember how that all goes? He was there when Pilate, was during Pilate's temptation or something. I forget how the exact words go. You see strangers entering God's sanctuary in Jeremiah 51. We see the cross dressing one church in children's stories. Now look at Revelation 18:21. Okay. See, there's that reference to 18. We're going to have to read it. Let's go there next Wednesday. How about that, guys? You guys asked for it. So, but we have to know these things. These are good things because, I mean, there is a call to come out of her. Who is her? What is her? And what's going on with all of this? And we're talking mainly about Babylon. So, all right, folks. Well, I'm about to talk to myself half to death. I don't have a co-host with me today, but this Friday we will. My wife will be back, and we're going to go through the lesson. We're going to try and stay on topic. You guys help me out here because it's a lot of times it's the comments that kind of get me all excited about something. The lesson isn't always the funnest thing to go through. Let's just say that. Okay, I'll be the first one to say it, but it is necessary to stay with structured Bible study. I do know that much, and it's not a bad thing to go through the exercises of staying on topic. So, yes, come and visit, Liza. Absolutely. Yeah, come on down. We can at least put you up if nobody else wants to come. And it's called Sympathy for the Devil, Thomas Berry says. Yes, Sympathy for the Devil. That's the song. But and if anyone wants to come, let me know. So there you guys go. You guys got an official invite, and maybe we'll find a place to hang out. Maybe I can talk to some people. I've been going to the Mount Ellis Church, so maybe we can get some dorms or something that are set aside. Of course, it's school right now, but we'll figure out something. We'll figure it out. So I'll have to admit the lessons here lately have been not very well written, but we can boast them through discussion. That's right, and that's how I've always looked at them too. Through discussion, and that's a good point. I mean, we can enhance, what's already there, correct what we feel is wrong, and kind of go through it. And we should at least do that much. That's our duty. And they are good lessons for the most part, written by men. Of course, men are flawed, and so we got to give whoever writes them a little bit of leeway, as we would want others to do for us as well. So, all right, with that, folks. Well, God bless each and every one of you guys. Thank you guys for being such a lovely and wonderful group to sit here and have Bible study with. And I really look forward to getting together and being the one that don't talk and having somebody else, because that's what's kind of fun with me, especially when we have a panel. It's coming, guys. It's coming. We're going to get our own room here soon. I believe that God's going to grant that to us, and we're going to have all the regular people plus some more here with us as well. So, but all right, folks. God bless you. Have a blessed rest of your week. Friday night, don't forget, 7:00. So.